So, was Jesus a great moral teacher? The New Testament certainly says so, and the Christians say so. Islam says he was one of the greatest of God's prophets. Other religions portray him as a good man, as a great man, or even as the greatest of men. And even, believe it or not, according to the Catholic Herald, Richard Dawkins says so too. Scarcely anyone disagrees that the teachings attributed to Jesus in the New Testament pass the test of moral excellence. But is that all he was, a moral teacher? Is it all that he ever claimed to be? What did Jesus say about himself? Many make the blasé statement that he never claimed to be God, and that it was others who accused him of saying, "I am the Son of God." But he never denied it. Indeed, it was his affirmative reply to the question, "Art thou then the Son of God?" that sealed his death warrant from the religious leaders of his day. Son of God meant one thing to them: a claim to deity. On one occasion in the Gospels, he asked his disciples about public opinion about himself. When they replied with various responses about great historical characters in the history of the nation, he pressed the issue by asking them of their assessment of who he was. And he accepted their assessment that he was the Christ of God, the promised one. Why did he ask his disciples that question? Repeatedly, he referred to God as his Father, from the age of 12 and right throughout his adulthood. In his Gospel, John records his personal recollections of Jesus' actual words, words in which Jesus claims for himself the fundamental name of Jehovah, the great I Am. Why this repeated allusion to who he was? Was it just a hoax, a deliberate lie to fool the gullible? Was he attempting to stamp authority on his teachings? Did he get carried away with the euphoria of popularity? Was it his inflated ego? Or is there any evidence that it was actually true? One of the remarkable things about Jesus in the New Testament is that the New Testament points out many of the features and circumstances of his life as the fulfillment of Old Testament scriptures. His virgin birth was foretold, his virtuous life, his rejection and his death. His identity as Emmanuel, God with us, was foretold. And so the gospel record that he was the Son of the Highest is the fulfillment of Scripture, the basis of divine claims. And then again, Jesus gave authority to his teachings by the miracles that he performed. He demonstrated power over sickness and disease, and in so doing bestowed the forgiveness of sins upon a paralysed man, an authority which only God has. The teacher of Israel, Nicodemus, recognized him by his miracles as one who came from God. A man who had been blind from birth, to whom he gave sight, recognized him as one who was of God. He demonstrated a supernatural power over nature itself when he stilled a raging storm on the sea. His miracles were a demonstration of the truth of his divine claims. But what of his moral character? The scriptures teach that sin is universal throughout the entire human family descended from Adam. The teachings of Christ are equally clear. He said, "Flesh is flesh, sinful to the core, and human beings must be born again." Yet he would claim to be without sin, and could challenge his critics with the question, "Who among you can convict me of sin?" And they couldn't. Friend, foe, and neutral alike confessed that he did no sin, in him was no sin, he was righteous, he was an innocent man. He was distinct and different, the Son of God, God revealed in flesh, God with us. To teach honour, honesty, and humility to others, while being insincere, dishonest and proud about ourselves is the hallmark of the fool, the knave and the fraud. It is to be completely lacking in integrity, and we discount such people as hypocrites. We look for integrity, especially in prominent people, and our confidence is undermined when we don't find it. But integrity is exactly what we see in Jesus. A man whose claims and words were backed up by his actions and his life. He was the only begotten Son of God, who coming into the world told out the very heart of God. It is precisely this which gives his teachings the moral authority that they command. Such authority is not human, it is divine. It is an authority which touches on the lives of every person, you and me, an authority that even death cannot oppose.